as radio voice of the Mavs, Chuck Cooperstein joins us now here in the GBag Nation. And a good afternoon, Chuck. How you doing?
All good, fellas.
Yes, sir. It is. And are you with us where you just don't see a lot of these Kyrie Irving reports as credible threats, or what time is it with Kyrie Irving and the Mavs? With according to you, coming up in an hour.
Well, I'm always afraid to get inside that head, and there's a lot of space there. A lot of things can happen in there, and I think again, for someone on the outside. It seems pretty clear to me that he's trying to create a market that, at this point, doesn't seem to have existed. The Mavericks obviously want him back, and they want it back on their terms, clearly. And there hasn't been much interest, it seems, elsewhere. And he's trying to find a way to get as much money for as long as he possibly can, and get somebody to take him on. And now, again, who that is, clearly he wants to go to a team that could contend. But again, how many teams are willing to take on not just Kyrie the player, but everything else that Kyrie brings with him? And the Mavericks obviously are willing to do that. Are others willing to do that too, to make the Mavericks actually think about this?
Yeah, it's interesting, and what kind of offers can those teams put together is one thing. But if you're the Mavs, how do you approach it from their side? Do you just pay him like he's a superstar, or would you try to fight to get this as low of a contract as possible?
No, you can't just throw money at him for the sake of throwing money at him. That's crazy. That's bad business. They clearly have something in mind. I have my own theory that the contract length should pretty much be tied into where Luka's contract is and go from there. And, there's also the issue of the Mavericks trying to create as much salary cap space as possible so they can, better bid on players at the mid-level exception. So, if Kyrie wants a longer contract, it probably means he has to take a little less money up front. If he wants a shorter contract, then he can take a little more money up front. There are some who would certainly argue that Kyrie on a short-term deal is better than Kyrie on a long-term deal. I don't know what the Mavericks feel about that, but I would be surprised personally if we wound up hearing whenever Kyrie does sign, and if he signs with the Mavericks, that it's for 5 years and $272 million.
Coop, this might be an unfair question, but I feel like you would know this better than most people. How bummed would Luka be if this didn't work out with Kyrie?
Obviously I haven't talked to Luka, but you'd have to think he'd be really disappointed. Unless there's something else cooking that they bring in players that make the team better. Whether Kyrie is moved, say in a three-way trade, if somebody's willing to pay him that money, that allows the Mavericks to get something back of real significance. That's the only way I would imagine that Luka would be happy at all with this. He clearly signed off on the deal in the first place last February. Otherwise they wouldn't have done it. But at this point, it's impossible to know really what anybody's feeling. Luka, I believe, is in Slovenia right now, and Kyrie's hanging out somewhere in Los Angeles taking Zoom calls.
Chuck,
get ready to take Zoom calls.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. 54 minutes from right now, and not a second earlier. And now, if let's just hypothetically say we get the Kyrie comes back and the Mavs have the full mid-level exception, would you like to see them use that on one guy at the full mid-level, or do you think, hey, split that up between two or three guys that could be rotation pieces?
Depends on who the player is. If you're telling me it's Bruce Brown, I'm all about giving him the entire mid-level. If we're talking about other players, then I don't think you'd have to. Like, for instance, I'm a big fan of Taurean Prince, the Baylor ex, who Minnesota didn't want to pay $7.5 million to this year. If you told me that Prince could start at $7.5 million on a 2 or 3 year deal, I think that would be, and then you have room, still about $5 million to do other things. Then I think that would be something that's definitely worth doing. But you got to tell me who the player is before we determine, whether or not it's one player for the full or multiple players breaking up to 12.4.
Chuck, did the draft tell you any direction or give you an idea of what direction though the Mavs might be going? I thought they did an excellent job of working that draft and making something happen. But did you learn anything like, okay, this is the direction I think they're going to go come free agency?
Well, I think it was more of a general direction of what they want their team to look like. And that is to have players who are able to defend their own man and have some toughness about them. Willing to put someone on the floor if they have to go to the floor to do that. That clearly was missing from last year's team, and especially at the end of the year. That was the case for much of Jason's first year in 22 when they went to the Western Conference Finals. And I think that's what they want to get back to. I don't know that they necessarily, they'd love to be a number one ranked defense like Cleveland was for a lot of last year. But I think we all know that you basically have to be somewhere in the top 10 in defense if you're going to be seriously thought of as a contender. And the Mavericks were wound up 25th last year. That's a long way from the top 10. They got to get better there. And I think the draft showed that. And I think, when you're hearing names like Bruce Brown and you're hearing, Taurean Prince, that sort of gives you an indication of what they're looking for.
You bring up Brown and Prince. Another name that seemed to pop up here is former Mav Jay Crowder. How would you feel about that reunion?
I like the other guys better. I wouldn't be opposed to it. Jay had a really weird year last year. Obviously held out for so much of the year, and then apparently was unplayable for Milwaukee in the Miami series, and I don't know why. Maybe he wasn't in shape. I don't know. It didn't work out there for him. I love his toughness. He's not a great rebounder. He's not a great shooter, but he is kind of a connecting player. And I do think that, if Bruce Brown were unavailable, the scenario that you guys brought up earlier about splitting up the money, I think Jay Crowder made, $10 million in his deal with Phoenix. He's not getting that here, not in this market. And so he definitely becomes a more palatable option. I would not be opposed to that.
It's Chuck Cooperstein with us. Tough news in the world of sports broadcasting today with ESPN letting go 20 different personalities, including former coach and analyst Jeff Van Gundy. There was a report a month or so ago the Mavs were interested in adding him to their coaching staff. Did you hear anything about that?
I've not heard anything more than what Mark Stein's initial report was. It's on one hand, it sounds great, and there are a lot of ways that you can spin it to justify why he would want to come back as an assistant coach. But in the end, it's almost impossible for me to think that Turner won't just snap him up and put him alongside his brother, on the lead NBA team with Kevin Harlan.
Yeah, that would make some sense. Does the organization feel like Jason Kidd needs a veteran presence or needs more help on the coaching staff?
I think they want a veteran presence on the bench. I think they do. They're Sean Sweeney obviously has been with Jason really a long time. He really going back to his Brooklyn days. But Jared Dudley's a young coach. He's just finished his second year, and he's going to coach the summer league team this year and get some reps actually running the team. But it never hurts to have a Yoda, if you will, next to you. Look at all the years that Phil Jackson had the likes of Tex Winter and Johnny Bach next to him. That's just one example. I think it's anytime you can have a really good mind next to you on the bench, regardless of whether it's a young guy or an old guy, certainly a guy with experience who's sat in that chair before, and somebody that you can run ideas off of, and someone that you clearly respect, which it certainly seemed as if everybody from the Mavericks organization does when it relates to Jeff Van Gundy, then I've got no problem with it.
Who are you more bullish on when it comes to the young Mavs guys? Is it Josh Green or is it Hardy?
I think Hardy's going to be really good. I mean, Hardy. I mean, they're different players, so it's what's your definition of bullish, and why should? I mean, you should be bullish on both. I mean, Josh improved dramatically, and again, he's that type of connecting player that when he's running around like his hair's on fire, I mean, their team definitely plays better. The fact that he became a very good corner 3-point shooter. For a team that shot more corner threes than any team in the league last year, and made the most too. That's a great sign. Jaden's a bucket, man. He is a walking bucket. He's the type of guy that's very much, if not this year, then certainly in the future. You can look at him as a Jordan Clarkson type among those that are playing right now. But, a guy like Jamal Crawford or Lou Williams, I mean, that comes immediately to mind because there is no lack of confidence when Jaden Hardy gets the ball in his hands and thinks he's going to shoot. It's going to be fun to watch him in Summer League because they're going to put a lot on his plate. I mean, he's going to be the lead guard, and he's going to have to do more than simply shoot the ball. I mean, he's going to have to be able to create for himself, and he's going to have to be able to create for others. But, you look at what happened once he returned to the team from blowing up the G League. I don't think any Maverick fan should not be excited about him. I mean, if you're not excited, I don't know what you want from him. And especially where he was picked, 37th. They got an incredible bargain out of that, and I think they're going to really get some serious bang for their buck from him this year.
Coop, speaking of the Mavs fans, there was the report that Dwight Powell will be returning, and Mavs fans seem to not like that very much as they seem to retool their bigs. How do you think Dwight Powell fits into that?
Well, again, tell me who the other bigs are. I don't know who the other bigs are right now. I mean, Richaun Holmes is here. I mean, it seems to me that Richaun Holmes is the starter, at least until there's somebody else that comes in here. I think there can be a role for Dwight. But I would doubt that it would be as a starter. I think that the fact that he is as well respected in the organization and has a really good head on his shoulder, and as more players that are really young come to the organization, players talk to players, and players respect players, and players respect work ethic and how you go about your business, even if you don't always have the greatest talent in the world. And I think anybody who would look at Dwight would look at that and say, this is how I should go about my business. And if I go about my business like that with the talent I have, I think I can maximize what I have. So, I mean, I don't really have a problem with it. I don't think anybody should have a problem with it. But I think it all depends ultimately on who's here. I mean, I think Holmes is going to start. I would love to see Lively develop, and again, another guy that we really need to see in the summer league, and he's got to learn how to play without fouling. But I mean, all the raw materials are there for someone really special to be molded and developed. And then Maxey's going to play some small ball 5 when they want to do that. So. Having in case of emergency, break the glass guy on a short contract that's probably at a lot lower number than what he's made in the past, then I think that should be fine for everybody.
What'd you make of the Mark Stein trade report where they had offered THJ, McGee, and Holmes for Ayton? Suns didn't want McGee, so the deal falls through. Would you have done that deal if you were the Mavericks, even without McGee in it?
I mean, I love Ayton. Okay, I've always loved Ayton, and I'm a fan. I'm a fan of the big man. I understand. Big men are dinosaurs, but when dinosaurs rule the earth, that's how I am when it comes to that. I love playing through guys like that. I like guys, if their floor is 18 points and 10 rebounds and shooting 60% from the floor, that's something I can live with. And I would love to have been able to see them pull the deal off. And who knows if they still won't pull that deal off, right? I mean, because you get to tomorrow and some of the rule changes come into effect that might make it easier for them to pull off that deal. Whether McGee would be included in the deal or not, I don't see. I still see a possibility. Let's put it that way. I mean, and maybe that's over optimistic me, but I love DeAndre Ayton, and I know that DeAndre Ayton and Luka share the same agent, Bill Duffy. They've known each other for some time. It's my understanding they actually have a pretty good relationship with each other through the agency. And I think that DeAndre Ayton, regardless of where he winds up outside of Phoenix, because I think we're all going to come to an assumption here that he's not going to be in Phoenix next year. When he leaves Phoenix, he will play better for his new team than he ever played for his old team. It was just a situation that was not good. It was not good for Ayton. Obviously, Ayton didn't like the coach. The coach didn't like the player. When that happens, bad things happen. So DeAndre Ayton really needs to get out of Phoenix in order to unlock whatever more there is, because I think we've seen the absolute minimum, frankly, of what he's capable of.
Chuck Cooperstein, voice of the Mavs, free agency now 42 minutes away. Thank you so much, sir, and enjoy the rest of this offseason.
Thanks for having me, guys. Happy 4th to you.